Okay. At the moment, Anshu's table, which is basically sourced from NITI Aayog, is that there is a 21 lakh crore fiscal deficit, of which 8 lakh crore is already there. And then there is a 3 lakh crore added to it because you are not going to get taxes and divestment. So that makes it 11 lakh crore. And then she has a 10 lakh crore government stimulus. Prasanna, what have you made of the math? Okay, we'll get to Prasanna in a minute. Anant Narayan is with us. Anant, is this a good math? Starting a deficit, 8 lakh crore. 2 lakh crore taxes will not come, so that makes it 10 lakh crore. Another 1 lakh crore of divestment will not come, makes it 11 lakh crore deficit. And an added 10 lakh crore of government stabilization, which is a proactive expense. Is it looking like a pragmatic package?
I think the key number to focus on here, Lata, is that 10 lakh crore number. That tells you what NITI Aayog is focusing on as a fresh stimulus package. This is substantially higher than what most people have penciled in, of 2% of GDP. This is closer to 5% of GDP. So it's a number which should give relief to the system, at least in the short run. Overall math, Lata, I would look at the overall PSBR, the public sector borrowing requirements, rather than just the central and state fiscal deficit. That, if you recollect, last year was already close to 10% of GDP. Even without a fiscal package, purely from lower taxes and from lower disinvestment, that number could well go up to 14% of GDP. So the actual PSBR with a 5% stimulus could go closer to about 19% of GDP. Now, look, in conventional scenarios, these kind of numbers are extremely scary. You would worry about ratings downgrade. You would worry about loss of confidence. You would worry about inflation, currency chaos, etc. In times like this, for the immediate future, we don't need to worry about these things because these are very, very different circumstances. But what I would also like to see along with the package being announced, if this is indeed the final package announced, is the way forward. How do we intend to address this once COVID-19 is behind us? Is there a way back towards normalization? Which is credible or not?
All right. We see, this is a sourced information. It is possible NITI has something, but what we have only the scenarios they have imagined and the recommendations that they appear to have put forward. So this is a 10 lakh crore stimulus package, which assumes that 3 lakh crore is not going to come. So that is an additional part of the fiscal deficit. Now, 10 lakh crore stimulus package, Anant, Shaumya and Prasanna, do stay on. Anshu, how is that 10 lakh crore going to be spent? Can you revise for us where NITI is recommending that the money be spent?
So the focus is on household. Now, some of the data that we have seen shows that the proposal is to support payroll for 60 million workers in MSMEs, and the fiscal impact would be in the range of 40 to 70,000 crore rupees. Direct income support to 135 million informal workers and contractors. That will have a fiscal impact of about 1.2 lakh crore to 2.4 lakh crore. So as we reported earlier, the focus is on the poorest of the poor in the chain right now. And on infrastructure, now there's a concession for home buyers through GST rebate, stamp duty rebate for 6 months. Also, there are talks of utilizing National Intra-Investment Fund where it should raise private and foreign capital in faster execution of some of the big projects of pipeline. That will be close to 40,000 to 70,000 crore. Now, for the MSME, the proposal is that RBI should bring in liquidity line of 80,000 crore to 1.2 lakh crore to banks and non-banks with credit backstop by the government. That will have fiscal impact of 10,000 to 20,000 crore rupees. And similarly, for the banks and NBFCs, it has also talked about the RBI forbearance to reduce capital constraints, which will have which will be for 2.5 lakh crore rupees. And there are other non-fiscal measures like causing
just a minute.
One minute.
Capital constraint for banks, which government will fill in. Is that what you're saying? Capital constraint of 2.5 lakh crore. So banks will be recapitalized to the extent of 2.5 lakh crore.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Got that. That's a substantial amount of money. Okay. Shaumya, how does this compare? Does this look like a pragmatic plan? It includes payroll support for MSME workers. direct income support to informal workers. So I would assume that is some kind of a Jan Dhan or an MNREGS conduit payment. And then there are separate credit guarantee fund to absorb NPL slippages. That is about 1 lakh crore to 1.5 lakh crore. Soumya, have they thought through everything?
Yeah, I think the package addresses most of it, but I think the most important thing in this case is the support for the workers. Because if you look into the numbers, the total number of workers in the country is around 37.3 crores, of which the total number of casual labor is around 25%. So an income support for this casual labor class is very important. Okay. But the other important point which I'd like to point out is that in terms of the capital infusion, I think the better option could be a combination of capital infusion as well as guarantee fund, because the experience globally shows that the leverage in terms of a guarantee fund is significantly higher. So maybe a combination of these two could suffice.
Oh, right. Well, actually, we are getting a whole host of recommendations from the NITI Aayog. We have to wait and see. Let me make it very clear. These are very initial recommendations which we have sourced. Do not run away with the assumption that all this is done and dusted. It is just initial, very, very initial recommendations that we have sourced, and it has to go to the PMO. It has to get the stamp of approval. So, I mean, I'm just putting the warning on the table. Do not get the impression that any of this is a done deal. It is just a government analysis, a think tank analyzing. Okay, we've got Prasanna on the line. Prasanna, we've been discussing what are possible scenarios. The scenario appears to be a 2% GDP growth, and the recommendation appears to be a 10.5% fiscal deficit from the centre and 2.6% of the states. You think this can pass through the market with some OMO support, or it will have to be primary RBI buying of bonds?
Well, first of all, 10.5 for centre and 2.6 for states appears so lopsided. So I think it's a very flawed design, whoever came up with these numbers. So let me just record that first. Second is that I still think it's too early. See, I mean, I also had a look at the kind of numbers which you read out.
Yeah.
Now, one is, I think from April 20, we're going to have a partial opening up.
Yes.
And if we are sure that beyond May 3rd that this process will continue, right?
Yes.
Then maybe both the scenarios, I mean, we are somewhere in between both the scenarios. So essentially the numbers can again change.
Okay. Well, actually,
but in terms of the magnitude, I think, I mean, we were looking at a 5% fiscal stimulus over and above what is already there.
Yeah.
In the sense that the budgeted deficit was 6%.
Yes.
For FY21, another 5% on top of that.
Yeah.
So this seems to be in the same ballpark.
Line. Yeah, I agree. It's on the same ballpark. Yeah. Okay, actually, Prasanna, we are getting suggestions from NITI sources that this is extremely preliminary. In fact, they're telling us not to go ahead with it. So I'll do one thing. I'll thank all of you for participating, but I once again want to reiterate, these are very, very preliminary thoughts. Do not run away with the assumption that this is a done deal or that this are even final recommendations of the NITI. It is just initial thoughts that we have been able to source. It is a possible 5% fiscal stimulus and assuming some slippage in terms of tax and divestment collections. Okay, with that, we will wind up this discussion, and we will be taking a break and coming back with the Mutual Fund Corner.